All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at the Volume. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having an incredible start to your week. Well, we were going to wait until Wednesday to do our film session, but then we decided that we just couldn't wait. So we have a lot of clips we're going to get into today. I want to dive into a bunch of different facets of the Western Conference Finals initial game. Again, we're going to move kind of quickly because there's a lot of stuff that I want to get into. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. We're on the pathway to 150,000 subs, so it'd mean a lot to me if you guys would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, like this video, sign up for post notifications. That helps us a lot. All right, let's talk some basketball. So a lot of key things that we're going to dig into tonight, or today, I should say. You know, there's a lot of things that Oklahoma City can do better, but there's also a lot of things that the Spurs can do better. That's typically the case. The biggest thing that stood out to me on the film is we talked so much about the Wemby problem, and we're going to go through some different things that Wemby was able to have success with and things that Oklahoma City can do to counter that. But one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the film session this morning is the Spurs guards are a problem. Steph Castle and Dylan Harper have consistent size and strength and athleticism advantages throughout the game. And that is a problem that I don't think is going away for OKC. I'd even extend that to Devin Vassell, who at several points was able to get matchups against guys like Jared McCain and just simply shoot over the top. Every time I go back and rewatch a game, there are certain things that kind of fall in line with what I thought the night of, but then there are certain things that kind of scream off the film that are a different kind of takeaway than what I had from the game. And one of my biggest takeaways was just the Thunder, even if they solve the Wemby problem, they have another big problem in the form of these Spurs guards and their size over the top. But without any further ado, let's get into the film. So we're going to start here with some good, a good example of the Hartenstein tee up, a little spacing concept for bigs that try to have a valuable form of spacing without shooting threes. Dagnall bailed on Hartenstein early, which led to a rebounding problem, right? The Spurs out-rebounded the Thunder by 20. It was like 61-40, right? So this is a textbook tee-up. Watch how Hartenstein, as the drive is going towards the baseline, there's a basic rule, right? So as this drive is taking place, let's say that Dort drives towards the middle. Then Hartenstein wants to cut across the baseline to the opposite dunker spot. But if he drives towards the baseline, he's going to tee up right here in front of the basket. And he actually gets a pretty good look here, and he just misses it. And that's actually something that I think that he would make at a pretty decent clip over the course of the series. I think there's some value there. And you're going to see another example of Hartenstein setting a Gortat screen on Wemby as well. Not to say that the Hartenstein's the solution to their problem. I just wonder if Dagnall gave him a little bit of a longer leash as we progress through the series. Here's an example of just how dominant this Spurs defense and how difficult they are to deal with. So watch, Shai's dealing with Castle. Here comes a screen from Dort. Watch the aggressive switch from Champagnie as he juts out onto Shai, pushes him back. Then watch how far Devin Vassell is up in this gap here off of Chet Holmgren. Now, Shai probably just needs to make this read, but that's an example of just how much they're shrinking the space. And look at how good of a job Vassell does getting a hand on the basketball and stripping Shai on that dig down. Here's an example of just what a physical dynamic Wemby presents even for Chet Holmgren, something to keep in mind if they switch the matchup. Watch how Chet goes to throw a box out, and Wemby just simply overpowers him and just goes right over the top, gets the basketball, and puts it back in. Here's an example of one of those Gortat screens. This is just really good defense from Steph Castle. So let's watch Isaiah Hartenstein first. Watch as he rolls down the lane and he ties up Wemby. See how he gets into Wemby's body and ties him up? If Hartenstein is able to do that, there's a lot of opportunity to get some stuff around the basket, which Oklahoma City's really not getting right now, right? So really what it comes down to is Shai has to win this battle with Steph Castle. Watch the job Steph Castle does getting over the screen, and then watch this lunge step to get back in front of Shai right here. Boom. That lunge step from there to there puts him back in front of Shai and has him back in control of the situation. Shai's got to find a way to win that battle. Keep Steph in jail, then let Hartenstein go clear the path. And then if Steph is in jail, he can just snake the pick and roll back towards his right hand and get all the way to the basket. That's just a battle he has to win with Steph. Instead, he goes for this like drifting bank shot that has really no shot. Look at this individual defense from Steph Castle on Shai. Cuts him off, makes him kick it back out. Another switch into Devin Vassell. Look at how high they are in the gaps. See this? This is how difficult it is to score against this Spurs defense. You've got Shai working against Vassell with Champagnie and Castle both in the gaps. Lou Dort's open, but he's your worst three-point shooter. It's just a really tough dynamic to work with. That's a really difficult shot. And that's what one of the things we were talking about in the series preview. The kinds of shots that Shai's going to get in this matchup are just really tough. Dagnall ends up going to Caruso fast as a result of that, the inability to score with Hartenstein on the floor. You're going to see a help on a Shai drive here towards the middle. Easy little kick out pass to Caruso up top. We'll see how often he keeps hitting. Again, we talked about this last night. The Thunder generated 26 open catch and shoot threes. They made 15 of them. That's like fucking crazy. They were over 1.7 points per attempt. They shot as well as you could possibly shoot on those, and it just didn't matter because they weren't really getting anything else. This is an example of a ball screen that they set with the Chet Shai two-man game really far away, which allows Shai to get aggressively downhill with a little bit more momentum into Wemby's body. Remember, late in the game, we're going to get to it later, Shai hits a midi on an action just like this. But Castle trails the play, and he kicks back to Caruso, and he knocks down a three. We're going to get into more of those in crunch time, but I really liked the shots that OKC got out of that Shai-Caruso pick and roll at the top, kind of extended out towards half court. I talked in the series preview about how Oklahoma City didn't really have the same types of transition advantages in this matchup. Here's a great example of that. Look at Vassell just blocking J-Dub off the glass. This is not a team that you're just way more athletic than in the open court. I'd argue they're more athletic. Look at how Steph Castle just overpowers AJ Mitchell here. Again, these are this is the first example of that dynamic that I'm talking about. And you're going to see a ton of this against AJ Mitchell, against Cason Wallace, against Jared McCain, three core rotation players for the Thunder that are one of them's usually on the floor at all times, and they're just giving up a ton of size. Watch how Castle just overpowers AJ Mitchell. He's in front. There's nothing really he can do, but he's just too big, and he has to rake across his arms, and he ends up fouling him. The most common action that the Spurs ran in this game was the double drag. That's two screens at the top with Wemby rolling and a guard popping. And one of the things with the double drag is it brings Chet out in this hard hedge that he keeps like every single time they ran this double drag, Chet throws this hedge. And what that does is it clears a lot of space on the back line here. And this was a slip, but you're going to see all sorts of advantages here. There's going to be double drags where Wemby gets open slips. There's going to be double drags where Wemby gets a switch off of Caruso. There's going to be double drags where the popper is wide open. There's going to be double drags where they have the corners occupied and they send help at Wemby and the skip pass is open. But this double drag got pretty good shots for the Spurs every time. Here it's a lob for Wemby. He just happens to miss it. Here's the exact same thing. This time Keldon Johnson's open. Chet throws the hedge. Keldon Johnson's wide open. Knocks it down. Keldon hit some huge threes in this game. Here's the first example of Chet's individual defense on Victor Wembanyama. And again, I just thought he did a really good job here. And I think out of a bunch of shitty options, and there's a bunch of other problems here because, just simply put, if Chet has to deal with Victor Wembanyama out on the perimeter or just wherever he is with the basketball, he's not at the rim to help, but he's not at the rim much anyway, dealing with Devin Vassell, Julian Champagnie when he's guarding him. So I just think in general, the best way to use Chet in this matchup is to deploy him on Wemby as a one-on-one defender. Really good individual defense there, sliding his feet, beating him to a spot, forcing him to a tough shot over the top. Here's Steph Castle scoring on AJ Mitchell again. Switch with Dylan Harper. Drive. Just overpowers him at the basket. Those are the matchups that really concern me for the Thunder as the series progresses. Just put it very simply. With Wemby on the floor defensively, the Thunder are having a hard time getting any good shots other than these kick out threes, which they're already hitting at a high percentage, right? The San Antonio Spurs are also getting good catch and shoot 3-point shots that they are capable of making, but they're also getting all these really good shots for their guards. So even if you did manage to solve the Wemby problem, their guards are just more comfortable attacking matchups in this situation. J-Dub had a lot of success going downhill against the drop coverage against Cornet. Here's an example. This was his third bucket that he scored against Cornet and drop. So that's clearly their most effective matchup there. 97 defensive rating with Wemby on the floor, 114 with Cornet. That's a 17-point difference. Here's another example. Steph Castle just overpowering Cason Wallace because he's too small. That's a problem that's not going away. Really nice kick out here from Shai to Cason-Wallace on the right wing. Watch just how difficult this defense is to score against. He beats Keldon Johnson off the dribble, high gather through the dig, makes a beautiful kick out pass, and it still results in a contested three. He just knocks it down. It's just a really difficult defense to score on. Victor Wembanyama had a much higher level of comfort working against J-Dub physically. Here's an example of him overwhelming him on the offensive glass, just powers him under the basket and tips it in. Caruso was able to make Wemby work way harder, but that's the thing. Even then, Wemby solved Caruso at the tail end of the game. This was a double at the end of the first quarter where they just left J-Dub wide open and Shai makes the right read and J-Dub misses it. He was 1 for 3 on catch and shoot threes last night. If he continues to stay cold, don't be surprised if the Spurs start leaving him open more often. Here's a cleared side ball screen with Wemby out of kind of a double drag setup, but they set this second screen and they have the entire side cleared. And this is how Steph got his dunk in overtime. They just don't want to help off Wemby on the roll. It just leaves the lane. And this is another example too, what I was talking about earlier with Chet. Let's say this is Chet because you're putting Chet on Wemby. Wemby's going to start setting screens. And if you allow Chet to help at the rim, Wemby's going to get the switches that he wants, or the interior position that he wants. If you have Chet stay home on Wemby, it's just going to be bigger guards that are more athletic going against a tiny front line that doesn't really have any chance to stop them once they get there. That's where the Spurs guards are such a problem and why there's trickle-down effects to moving Chet around. Here's an example of that strong side zone. We talked about this a little bit. They ran it quite a bit in the tail end of the game last night as well. It's not a zone defense. It's a man-to-man defense. But when Shai goes to ISO, Wemby basically slides over, and then the other three guys just split the difference. Carter Bryant splits the difference. Dylan Harper splits the difference. Keldon Johnson splits the difference. So it's like they're basically zoning up off of a double team, and they're able to take away any sort of advantage. Caruso misses the three. Look at this tap out rebound from Keldon Johnson, just showing how athletic and big the Spurs team is and how difficult it is for them to, for the Thunder to match up physically. Carter Bryant ends up paying the sequence off with a three here on the left wing. Another power advantage here. Watch Keldon Johnson just go right through Jared McCain. And when he does, watch the ensuing dynamic that allows Victor Wembanyama to get the putback. He powers through McCain, draws 3 Thunder defenders at the rim. Wemby has an easy putback. Today's show is brought to you by presenting sponsor Hard Rock Bet, Florida's sportsbook. The second round of the NBA playoffs is here, where the lights are brighter, the pressure is higher, and every possession can change a series. And at Hard Rock Bet, every night is your shot to score a major bucket. With win or go home energy on the hardwood, I love building same game parlays. You might like the hot hand to drop 30, the big man to control the glass with a double-double, and the point guard to dish out 5 assists. However you draw it up, Hard Rock Bet gives you tons of ways to stack your picks into a same-game parlay built for the playoffs. If you're ever late for tip-off, don't worry. Hard Rock Bet lets you live bet all game long from the first bucket to the final buzzer. Try your first bet on Hard Rock Bet today, and you can score $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but also an extra $150 in bonus bets. Hard Rock Bet has new promos daily, so open up the app right now to see what promo you've got today. And sure, Hard Rock Bet is Florida's only legal sportsbook, but you don't have to be in Florida to join the party. Hard Rock Bet is also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and Michigan, with more states on the way. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today, and let's get the party started. Here's another one of those double drags with the switch at the end, and then look at the slip. The switch at the end, that gets Caruso off of Wemby's body. Because they hedge with the middle guy, Victor's open on the slip dunk. That double drag got really good looks for the Spurs. Really nice defense from Carter Bryant here. Look at Carter Bryant on Chet Holmgren at the rim, knock this ball away. And during the same run, he was sending a lot of double teams at Shai and rotating back out to shooters and getting stops. Like really, really nice work from Carter Bryant in this game. Another Keldon Johnson drive on Jared McCain, super easy, gets him into the lane. Victor sets a screen there right in the middle of the paint. Watch the defense of this ball screen from Castle and Harper. So you have Steph Castle fight over the top of this Hartenstein screen and get back in front of AJ Mitchell. AJ's not comfortable shooting over the bigger defender. He ends up kicking it out to Jared McCain. Jared McCain ends up beating Harper. Watch Steph switch, and then Harper peels off into the passing lane and gets the steal. Incredible defense from the two guards. Now juxtapose that with this play where Devin Vassell is able to easily shoot over the top of AJ Mitchell. See, same type of screen, same drop coverage. AJ Mitchell similarly does a good job of getting back in front. The difference is Vassell's got size on him and he shoots over the top. See how difficult that dynamic is for them to manage. It's just one of those things where that size advantage gives the Spurs a lot of like release valve opportunity for a guy to create a shot separate from the Victor Wembanyama versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander part of the battle. Okay, I want to make sure that we get to some of the stuff at the tail end of the game, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. Okay, I'm skipping to the fourth quarter here because I want to get into some of this stuff at the tail end of the game with the time that we have. And this was an example, first of all, of just Shai going quickly on Wemby when he was in help and able to turn the corner. Wemby takes some bad angles on the perimeter. It's one of the rare weak spots in his defensive game, and he takes a bad angle here on Shai, kind of opens up his hips, and Shai just goes right around him and gets the layup. So I had a clip on this earlier in the game, but obviously we had to move forward for time's sake. Steph Castle here is going to, Dylan Harper here is going to get open on a cut against Chet. We have an inside seal here against Caruso. Wemby catches, Chet roams over, and Wemby drops it off to Dylan Harper, and Dylan Harper just easily overpowers Chet. There was another play where Steph Castle earlier in the game just easily overpowered Chet at the basket for a layup. And the juxtaposition of like Chet's rim protection versus Wemby's rim protection in this game is jarring, with like Wemby shutting everything down and Chet's just kind of giving up a lot of stuff. And that really, of all the things, I don't think this is going to be a great series for Chet offensively, because he's a vertical spacer primarily, and that's just not something that's going to be a big opportunity in this matchup. But he simply has to be way better defensively. Here's another good Chet Holmgren rep against Victor Wembanyama. So we have one-on-one here on the left wing, and kind of goes for the pump fake, but he's still able to recover and kind of get back in front. Gets a good contest. J-Dub comes over as well. Those reps that Chet had on Wemby one-on-one were all really good. This is a shot that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander misses on the left wing, a step back three over Julian Champagnie. This is a good look for Shai. That was a shot that if he makes, the Thunder probably win this game, because it was a big momentum shot. And it's just an example of like, that's the kind of shot that Shai's going to have to make in crunch time if he's going to win this series. Like, his biggest advantage over Wemby is that specifically. Oh, we're late in the game, I can hit shots over the top more consistently. There's no defense for me. And that was really where Shai struggled. He ends up making a couple plays off the bounce here down the stretch, but then he goes for only 2 points in the entirety of overtime. Shai just has to be better in crunch time. We talked last night about when they would set these screens, Victor would get open on these inside seals. So it would give him inside position on J-Dub. And then Chet roams off the corner, right? So then they swing, and Vassell gets an open three. That's an example of that Wemby gravity. Set the screen, inside seal. We talked earlier about Wemby looked way more comfortable against J-Dub, so he needs more help. That's where the kick out three comes. Here's an example of that downhill pick and roll against Wemby that I talked about. Just set the screen, get right down into Wemby's chest, knock him off his base, knock down the jumper. That's that high pick and roll with Caruso that I really liked. Here's the exact same thing. This time Castle sends help, because he knows Wemby just got beat by the little step back, so he sends help. Now Caruso's wide open on the pop. On the other end of the floor, here's that exact same dynamic we just talked about with Chet helping off the corner. So Wemby gets the high post catch, runs the two-man game with Steph Castle, gets the switch, or tries to get the switch, doesn't quite get the switch, but watch Chet leaking off of Julian. Chet's leaking off of Julian because he's worried about Wemby. Now he gets the switch, inside seal, still leaking off of Julian, kick back corner three. That's that gravity for Wemby on those post-ups. So now, because Shai just beats you with the pick and roll a couple times in a row, they double it out of his hands. This creates a rotation sequence. Watch J-Dub beat the closeout on Champagnie with a little behind a back dribble into the floater over Wemby. Big couple of no calls late, and this was a play that Thunder fans were really upset about, and I didn't have a problem with. So you see a lot of grabbing here from J-Dub. J-Dub's like literally hugging Victor Wembanyama. As he's hugging Victor Wembanyama, it forces a turnover because he's not able to get his hands up because he's literally got his arms wrapped around Wemby. So there's a foul there that goes uncalled that leads to the turnover. And then as Shai goes the other way, Steph similarly gets his arms around Shai, no call, and he misses the layup. If you watch too, Shai kind of leads with that off arm initiates contact right here, tries to push him off. See, that's a push off. So like, I'm good with all that. This is playoff basketball. Okay, we're getting physical deny. That's a foul. No call. That's cool. Going the other way, Steph. As soon as Shai decided he wanted to run Steph over, I'm cool with the ref allowing Steph to fight him back. Good no call in that spot. On this play, now Caruso had just hit a three, but watch as Shai drives here. Wemby's really glued up to Caruso on the weak side, and that gives Shai an opportunity to get to the basket, and he draws a foul. This was an incredible bucket from Victor Wembanyama on J-Dub here in the middle of the floor. Gets the inside seal, fights for position, just methodically works him down. Just way more comfortable working one-on-one against J-Dub than he was against Caruso. Shai's game-tying layup, so we have the Iverson cut here over the top. Now, what you're going to see as an adjustment in any sort of large sample, this is a late game. I don't want to lose it, so let's go to OT kind of thing. Wemby refuses to help. But as a result of Wemby glued up on the weak side and then clearing this side, and look at the angle that Steph gives up to Shai, this is the purpose of the Iverson cut. The Iverson cut is this screen here that Caruso's trying to set, but it puts Steph in an angle chasing over the top so that Shai can quick catch and go. Whereas like if Steph goes under, then maybe Shai can get a jump shot here, or just in general get separated from his body and get into his bag. It's just a difficult action to guard. But what you will see ultimately is Wemby come over and help in any sort of other situation, and then they'll just rotate off the ball. Steph Castle's dunk to start overtime. This is another example of that ball screen roll gravity that Wemby has. Watch as he sets the screen. They both go with Wemby. Steph gets a runway, and there's no backline there. There's no backline because you have Chet guarding Devin Vassell way out here on the perimeter. Or Julian Champagnie, excuse me. Another offensive rebound for Wemby. Look at how he just overpowers J-Dub. Just a bad matchup. I thought this was an unnecessary overhelp from Julian Champagnie off of Alex Caruso in the left corner. Like, Wemby's there, so that's not your help. That's not the one you want to give up. I thought this was an insane defensive play from Caruso. Look at how he gets up into the passing lane and deflects this ball, which leads to the J-Dub run out. Just really an unbelievable game from Alex Caruso. Reminded me of Draymond Green in Game 7 of the 2016 Finals. A 30-piece because he's hitting threes, because he's being left open by the coverage, and then just dominating the game defensively. J-Dub finally wins a battle against Wemby here, strips him clean down low. And then AJ Mitchell blows it with this terrible shot here on the left wing. He's going for the crowd pop and really blows an opportunity to eat some clock and maybe try to make that more of a good possession. Wemby misses a putback here that was really at point blank range. But again, these are those ball screens. As soon as they run these quick ball screens, it kind of just leaves Wemby opportunities to find lanes for offensive rebounds underneath the basket. The Thunder were very fortunate that he missed that. If he makes that, then the Spurs have the lead there. Very different game at that point. This was a ridiculous play from Shai. This dunk on the spin move. Spins off of Vassell, sneaks it on Wemby. What a play from Shai. Only bucket in the overtimes. He's got to be way better in clutch time, but that was one hell of a highlight. More double drags. See how when they run the double drag, they hedge with Chet every single time. When they hedge with Chet, that left Champagnie open. That's actually a really good look for Champagnie, who shot 45% from three in the playoffs coming in. Just missed that one and was like 3 for 11 last night. This was a bad shot from J-Dub. Look at the time on the shot clock. So he runs this action with Shai. Shai's open on the pop. Give it back to your best player. Doesn't. Forces a bad contested pull-up. Almost puts a hole in the backboard. And then Victor Wembanyama. Just a ridiculous shot to force double OT. Here's an example of what the defense will look like when Chet is roaming off, or when Wemby is roaming off of Chet. Chet has a slow release, so it's easier to rotate to him. So watch as the drive happens, and it's going to come off of the other side. So as the drive happens here, Wemby ends up helping, but Steph Castle has a chance to rotate to Chet because his release is slow. Causes him to break his rhythm, and it turns into a much tougher contested step back three. That's why I think Wemby roaming off of Chet ultimately is their best option. I think we'll see the two of them guard each other a lot over the course of the series. So here to start overtime, the Thunder end up going small. Dagnall goes small and takes Caruso off the floor to give him a rest, and J-Dub off the floor as well to give him a rest. Now you have all these small dudes on the floor: AJ Mitchell, Shai, and Cason Wallace. Wallace ends up on Wemby, and he just powers right through him for an easy dunk. This is a shot that Shai just simply has to hit. This little step back jumper over Dylan Harper. Again, I just didn't think Shai was good enough in crunch time. But that's a good look. Like, I do think Shai's going to make that. This was a huge shot from Cason Wallace out of the double team. Off of the left wing. Big catch and shoot shot from Cason Wallace. Here, Dylan Harper just torches Shai. I'm going to fast forward here. So watch Harper just torch Shai. But again, like, Wemby's right there. Even if he doesn't, like, let's say that's Chet and he brings Chet over in rim protection and he misses a layup, like, Wemby's just cleaning whatever that is up. But Dylan Harper and Steph Castle have size and athleticism and strength matchups all over the floor. I thought this was just a really bad Shai turnover. If you fast forward here, I don't know what he saw here. He saw somebody cutting, I guess. Chet, I think, cutting down the middle, but that's just a bad pass. Turns it over to Dylan Harper. Here's a 4-out duck-in for Wemby. So we saw the Sixers run this for Joel Embiid, if you guys remember, but it's basically just pull everyone out really far from the basket and then just create a big opening for Wemby to quick duck in. He ducks in. Notice how he fakes the spin on this one. He fakes the spin, which gets him an angle to get in front. Then he spins and just dunks all over Chet's face. Then we get the Devin Vassell block. Unbelievable play. Watch how he does it off a drop step. Caruso misses the layup. Watch that off of a drop step. Like, he doesn't have a load up. He just goes off a straight drop step, a right-left drop step, and meets Chet up top and blocks him. Unbelievable play. Another duck in. Watch them clear the space. Everyone staying around on the perimeter. Duck in. This time he does get him with the spin. Boom. Spins right off of him. Easy lob pass and dunk. I don't think you can put... So he solved the Caruso problem at the end of the game with those duck-ins, and then Wemby finishes the game off with that block on J-Dub. So a couple quick things. Like, Caruso and J-Dub can't guard Wemby. So they quite simply have to make that change. In the middle section where I had to skip all those clips, one of the big things that I noticed on the film was the drive and kick sequences for OKC. When they got early dribble penetration and made multiple attacks in the same possession, they were able to get the Spurs into the blender more. And when they were able to get the Spurs into the blender, they got some really good looks at three and some better looks at the rim. So that was my other major takeaway. The unfixable problem for the Thunder in this matchup, and the thing that I think is going to be what ends up beating them as I continue to kind of stick with my preseason prediction or my pre-series prediction, is just the Spurs guards. Devin Vassell, Dylan Harper, Steph Castle, they got size all over the floor, and I don't think it's a problem that the Thunder can solve. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show. We will be back tonight after game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. I will see you guys then.